Hi everyone. So today we are going to be continuing our lesson on ancient Greece. So yesterday you did a web quest where you learned a little bit, you were introduced to some aspects of ancient Greek history. So today we're going to be diving into the different ages of ancient Greece, including the Bronze, Dark, and Golden Ages. So to begin, we're going to talk a little bit about the Minoans and Mycenaeans. So those civilizations approximately during the Bronze Age lasted from 2000 to 1400 BC, so about 600 years. The first group, the first civilization, the Minoans, right? They were the first settlers of the large Greek island of Crete, and we know they probably came from Western Asia Minor, or what we today call Turkey, and they probably got there well before 3000 BC. And we know ultimately Crete, this area, became a thriving sea power, and they traded with older civilizations of Egypt, Syria, Mesopotamia, and Asia. And because of these influences in their own diligence and creativity, Crete produced a distinctive and highly advanced civilization, right? And so that's what that's what the Minoans were. So their success was built on trade. They weren't really known for military conquest. They loved athletic contests. They had a lot of festivals. They dressed very stylishly, and we know that their civilization either fell from natural disaster or from from invaders from Greece. So some think that the natural disaster could have been possibly due to a huge volcanic eruption on the island of Santorini, and it said that the eruption had caused an enormous earthquake and huge tidal waves, like a tsunami, and that it might have wiped out the civilization. So, according to here we go. We'll look at some pictures. They're known for, according to the excavation work that's been done in this area, we know that they had created temples very similar to this. They used a lot of like orangish red and blue, light blue. That was they were known for very colorful artwork like that. And here's a priestess headdress from the Minoans. So clearly, they had a lot of treasure, right? They were wealthy. They lived in splendor, right? And here is a rendition, a drawing of what it might have looked like back then. And so, according to the remains that were found on the island by archaeologists, there's a lack of defensive walls, right? So they must have had some peaceful or friendly relations with the other civilizations in the region, right? For them to not have defensive walls, because a lot of times back then, cities like this, civilizations like this, would be walled off in order to protect the civilization from invasion. And the second civilization in the Bronze Age, the oldest age, is Mycenae, and it existed from about 2000 BC to 1200 BC, right? And it was located on the mainland. It was built to withstand any attack. So this civilization did have walls, right? And this civilization was characterized by piracy and war. And most people back then in this civilization were sheep herders, bakers, nurses, and metal workers. And during this age, during this Bronze Age, both of these civilizations, they lived under a monarchy, right? And they lived in surprising splendor. In fact, we know that the body of one child we found that was buried, right, was completely covered in gold. And we know they were always buried with their riches, right? So, if for a child to be completely covered in gold goes to show like just how much wealth and treasure that this civilization possessed. So, the trade that was going on during this period was a major source of treasure for these civilizations. We also know they had what's it called? They had weapons of bronze, treasures of gold, and we also know that one of the most famous sieges in history, I think actually the most famous siege in history, the Trojan War, which was told by the poet Homer, it involves the Mycenaean people. So the story goes that the people Mycenae, which you probably remember from the video that we watched yesterday, the people of Mycenae attacked Troy, which was a city or civilization in modern day Turkey. And the Trojan War, the retelling of it was told in the Iliad, which was based on, it was Homer's epic poem, right? Homer wrote it. And it was an attack on Troy by the Greeks, and it was led by the king of Mycenae in retaliation for the abduction of Helen, who was his wife, the king's wife. So the Greek army attacked and destroyed Troy because a Trojan youth had abducted Helen, who was the beautiful wife of a Greek king. And so we know that also this society had a lot of great feasts. They obviously, like I said, had a lot of wealth and weapons of bronze. And we also know that Mycenae eventually fell due to a sea invasion, right, in around 1200 BC. We know the palaces were all burnt to the ground, and a new group of people moved in. So here is approximately where Mycenae is located in Greece. So the light blue is mainland Greece. The pinkish purple is the island of Crete, where the Minoans were. And the dark blue over here by the eastern Aegean, this is modern day Turkey, or Asia Minor back then. And so Troy was on this landmass over here. So we have Athens here, and to the west, southwest of it is where Mycenae was located. And here is a rendition, a drawing of what it might have looked like, right? Clearly it's surrounded by the walls, unlike the Minoan civilization. And you can tell like the palace in the center, it is raised up, and it's in the center to prevent, if it was on the outskirts, to be more susceptible to attack. And so we have a picture of what it looks like today. We can tell in the right side of this picture, you can kind of tell these are walls or structures that still stand. These are just like random rocks out here. These were purposely placed, and we know it's most likely the palace was up here, so that way they had a good view around them and to protect against attack. So this is what the civilization, what's left of it today. So now the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages, the most important thing to remember about this age is when, so I told you that before they lived under a monarchy, right? The Minoans and Mycenaeans. In this age is when the aristocracy is like the wealthy elites, right? They began to throw out kings. So the Mycenaean civilization collapsed around 1200 BC. The palaces were all burned down, and then the Dorians, a new group of people, they moved in to the area. They were far less advanced, but they still spoke Greek, right? And they were not good traders. Poverty increased. They had little skill with pottery and tools, and also this age of known as the Dark Age, is when the skill of writing was lost during this time period. And the Olympics were held as well. So famous Olympics also took place during this time, and they were held every 4 years, beginning in the first one happened in 776 BC. And they had chariots, boxers, wrestlers, runners, javelin throwers, and they all worshipped Zeus and other gods that they believed to gather on what was known as Mount Olympus. And so they all competed in honor of the gods. And Homer's great poem, the Iliad and Odyssey, was was told during this time period. So it told tales of Troy and other battles, these epics, as they're called, these epic heroic poems. The Iliad was a story about the heroes at war during the Trojan War. And the Odyssey, it is about Odysseus, a man named Odysseus, who was a Greek hero from the conflict, right? And it's about his journey, his odyssey around the Mediterranean. And so, like I said, so some stories, these stories were told by Homer. Homer was a blind poet. He told stories that glorified the heroes of Troy during the Trojan War. And the Odyssey is about the adventure after fighting the Trojan War, the adventure that took place with the character Odysseus at the center. And through his tales, Greeks learned some important lessons, right, from these stories. And it was one of the lessons was to strive for excellence, to always strive for excellence, to show courage, and to win fame and honor. And these poems would later on inspire many writers and artists in Europe. They would emulate, and they were inspired by his work, so they made similar stories. And also, Sparta, during this period, became a warring society. It began to develop during this time period. They would examine. Sparta's known for examining babies at birth, and if they weren't healthy, they would let them die in the hills, right? Because they only needed healthy babies who could grow up and join the military. Because Sparta, they were warring constantly because they were in fear of being taken over by a neighboring city-state or civilization. And then also Athens. Athens is where democracy first took place in this age, right? So Athens and Sparta, they would end up fighting the Persians in the Persian Wars. The first battle, we know that they were victorious, both Athens and Sparta, over the Persians. About 25,000 men came from Persia, and about 6,400 of them died, while the Greeks lost only 192 out of about 10,000 soldiers. And the second battle of this war, Athens barely won, as most of Greece at this by then had given in to Xerxes. Xerxes was the leader of the Persian Empire, right? And most of Greece had given up to him, surrendered. But Athens barely won out, and they managed to stand against Xerxes and the other Greek states that had surrendered and joined Xerxes. So here is some images depicting different civilizations during the Dark Ages, right? And we are able to tell and make these drawings. We're able to tell what they might have looked like, these civilizations, through archaeological digs. So using that evidence, we're able to make these drawings and renditions to see what it would have looked like. And here is one of the most influential ages in ancient Greece, and it's the Golden Age. So this age is known, it's from 480 BC to 430 BC. It's about 50 years, right? And it's known as like a recovery from the Dark Ages, and it took place in the Polis, what is known as the Polis. The Polis is like a city, right? It's a city and the surrounding countryside around it, right? In the Golden Ages, it's known as the best of all ages, right? Arts, drama, sculpture, poetry, philosophy, and science all reached new heights during this time period. Drama was both an expression of civic pride as well as a tribute to the gods, and they would write plays and perform them on stage. Also, they used a lot of tragedies, right? The dramas often were a lot of tragedies, so they'd portray men and women whose strengths would ultimately lead to their downfall, That was a lot of how the stories went. Also, during the Golden Age, Sparta would defeat Athens after many years of tension. So this became known as the Peloponnesian War, right? So Sparta defeated Athens. Remember that, okay? During the Peloponnesian War. Architecture reached new heights as well. They used a lot of marble, bronze, and gold to create magnificent structures. And there was a lot of prosperity, right? They were making swords, pottery, shoes back then. So it was a great age in terms of that respect. But also, during the Golden Age, there were some disasters. There were two deadly disasters of Athens. They had plague, right? Spread of disease. And here is a continuation of the Golden Age. So, like I said, a lot of prosperity. They made a lot of pottery and wine. Wine was a big thing back then as well during the Golden Age. And philosophers searched for truth. So this was when the philosophers Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle kind of like came on the scene, right? And they are known to this day as like the three most famous and important philosophers in Western civilization. And they asked questions about truth. Like they really searched for truth, but they asked questions about life, right? So, how should we live? What is the purpose of life? These were all things that they grappled with and they dealt with. They're known for writing about. And then I do have a video for us to watch some of the contributions of Greece.
In ancient times, a complex and influential civilization arose on the mainland and islands of modern Greece. Rugged geography makes Greece seem like an unlikely place for a great civilization to develop. Mountains cover most of mainland Greece. The rocky landscape makes much of the country harsh and uninviting. Greece has been populated since about 4000 BC. But the people who established the Greek civilization didn't settle there until the Bronze Age, around 2000 BC. They were part of the movement of Indo-European peoples to Europe from the steppes of Asia. The Greeks settled in fertile valleys, forming communities called city-states that were isolated and spread out across the mainland. Each city-state developed its own religious practices and customs. Citizens were fiercely loyal to their own city-state and to the gods of their temples. The city-states often fought each other as each tried to expand the amount of fertile land it controlled. The Greeks believed their gods looked like ordinary humans and that they had human emotions such as love, hate, and jealousy. And the gods often became involved in human affairs. The Greeks believed that the gods controlled much of their daily lives. To keep the gods happy, they held dozens of religious festivals throughout the year. And the heads of Greek families often made sacrifices on altars in their homes. The Greeks told many stories about their gods. They saw the gods as a large family. Zeus was the head of the gods. His brother Poseidon, well known for his temper, ruled the seas. Athena, Zeus's daughter, was the goddess of wisdom and reason. Athens, an influential city in ancient Greece, was named for her. Athens was built around the Acropolis, a large rocky hill. By 450 BC, the Acropolis began to look as it does today, with the Parthenon and other temples sitting at the top. The Parthenon may be the most famous example of classical Greek architecture. Many architectural techniques first used by the ancient Greeks are in use around the world today. The Greeks were also skilled at pottery and sculpture. Their artwork shows scenes from both their everyday life and their stories about their gods. These stories also formed the foundation for much of ancient Greece's writings. Homer, whose works are still read today, wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. These epic poems became models for Western literature. Greek mythology also gave rise to modern theater. Drama began as performances that were part of religious festivals. Actors spoke lines, and groups called choruses commented on them. Over time, writers wrote complex plays that probed questions about how people should live, and the theater was born. Men wearing masks, the theater's first actors, performed these plays. Knowledge was as important to the Greeks as art. Many Greeks made the pursuit of wisdom a way of life. The philosopher Socrates often challenged accepted beliefs. He used logic and reason to examine the world. Greek thinkers laid the groundwork for many areas of learning, including Western philosophy, history, science, mathematics, and medicine. These ideas and traditions have helped shape the Western world, and they all began in ancient Greece.
So we're going to answer this question, so take a second. And here is some pictures of what a theater. Today you can go visit these sites and get a feel for what it might have been like back then in ancient Greece. And the way that they were designed, apparently even at the top, when you're sitting at the very, very top of the theaters, the amphitheaters, it's almost like you're sitting in the front row. They knew how to build it in such a way that it's almost like you could hear the actor who was performing the drama like you were right in the front row. Even though they were at the very top, they knew how to build them just right. And here is the Acropolis. So the Acropolis in Athens is, like you read about a little bit, it's the top of the hill, right? And this is the Parthenon that sits atop the Acropolis. So it's overlooking the rest of the city of Athens. And this is where they would worship their gods, right? It was dedicated to the god of Athena, right? Which is the god that Athens is named for. So what we're going to do is we're going to end the lesson here, and we'll pick up on learning a little bit next time about Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and go forward from there. So thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions.